All right. Well, today, technically a day off, but it is also a travel day for me. Right after this 53-man roster projection, I'm going to be headed to SFO to fly to Vegas for 49ers Raiders joint practices in the desert tomorrow and Friday, and then the preseason game on Sunday. Major inflection point for the 49ers. They've been installing plays, really is focusing on themselves up until this point. These joint practices with the Raiders combined with the first preseason game will mark that transition into regular season mode. But before we leave San Francisco, I know I don't do a lot of live shows at this time of the day, so lunch with Lombardi is here, and this is where I just ate. The place is called Saucy Asian. It's at 17th and Sanchez, right in between the Castro DeBose Triangle and the Mission. This is their Saucy Poke Bowl. So go ahead and check this out because it was delicious. I went and swam in the bay, and then I needed to have a lunch that would make me not feel all too gluttonous because I'll be in Vegas, which is the city of American excess and gluttony. And to save some room before then to make myself feel nice and spry, I decided to go for the Poke Bowl at 17th and Sanchez. Lunch with Lombardi. Those of you who are new to the channel know that this is 49ers talk combined with a lot of really good food, and one of the great cities in the world for eating in San Francisco. And then I travel a lot, and the 49ers travel a lot. The 49ers will actually be traveling a good 30,000 miles this year, maybe I think 29,800, enough to circumnavigate the globe. So we're going to be bringing you good food from every single city, and especially good food here in the Bay Area. But let's get back to the 49ers. 53-man roster projection. I have this ready for you to toss up on the screen. I'm going to copy and paste the link to the spreadsheet that you could follow. So that way you have a live look at the depth chart. This is obviously up on Google Sheets. So there you go. You can go ahead and click on that in the chat section. Those of you who are watching this later on, you can retroactively access the chat. My flight's at 4:49 p.m. from SFO to Vegas. And speaking of Vegas, well, this is what's happening in Vegas. What to watch from the 49ers practices against Jimmy Garoppolo and the Raiders. That's Jimmy Garoppolo wearing a red jersey, which he never wore at 49ers practice because the non-contact jerseys for the 49ers are black for the quarterbacks. But in Vegas, they're red because the rest of the roster wears silver and black. So ironically, Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be wearing red for the first time against the 49ers defense, but he's not going to be part of the 49ers. He's going to be wearing the silver and black helmet. Anyway, this article, it's a preview. It's 5 things to watch in these joint practices with the Raiders. I get deep into it. This is not just your standard list. This is some good strategy, some fun discussion. So you can click the link on this one and sign up for The Athletic for $2 a month right now in the description. And hell, I'll just put it in the comment section right now. Copying and pasting is not that hard. So Vegas in just a little bit. But first, I pack every single minute of my day with efficiency if I can help it. And I can't help it today. We're going to go through that 49ers 53-man roster projection. So open up your rosters. It's accessible to you. It is in that chat section. I'm opening it up right now if you're too lazy to do that. Here we go, position by position for the 49ers on the projection. As you can see, I've got a counter here. I was working on this last night and I didn't finish. It looks like I have 54 man because I have duplicated Marcelino McCrary Ball and Demetrius Flanagan Foles. So need to erase one of them, erase another one of them. And I don't have the 2 rookies on here. Need to put D. Winters and Jalen Graham onto this projection. As soon as I do that, and I think that we're going to be in a much more accurate place. There we go. How about we fix some of our borders here? Boom, boom, boom. D. Winters and Jalen Graham are both rookies. Now, this is not a final projection for me. It's a living, breathing projection, and I do think that one of D. Winters and Jalen Graham will make the team here at the linebackers level. However, we'll discuss that when we get to it. Why don't we begin from the bottom this time and move on up? So, by beginning from the bottom, I mean we start with special teams. Jake Moody has been absolutely sensational for the 49ers so far this training camp. Yesterday, he booted one from 58 yards, easy. Then he backed up and he drilled one from 60 yards that hit the back fence behind the crossbar. And I think it would have been good from at least 66. This guy is as advertised. He might be even a little bit better than advertised, at least as far as his performance throughout training camp goes. So Jake Moody, obviously, the 49ers picked him in the third round. He was expected to make this roster. He will make this roster. If there's an injury, well, the 49ers still do have that insurance in Zane Gonzalez. But as of right now, if you take a look at this, Zane Gonzalez down here on the right side, anything on the right side of this dividing bolded line is a player who is not projected to make the roster. Right now, the 49ers are viewing Zane Gonzalez as a disposable asset, but disposable in that you might be able to get something back from. That's why he's an asset. Zane Gonzalez is also kicking well, but by the time that this cut down rolls around at about 3 weeks, there is likely to be a team that needs either a fresh new kicker or they need an upgraded kicker. And somebody who's been going toe-to-toe with Jake Moody this training camp, booming 50-yard kicks of his own, Zane Gonzalez is going to be a good candidate for that. The 49ers acquired him for essentially nothing, a seventh-round pick swap, a conditional one at that, from Carolina. So if they can maybe get a sixth-round pick in exchange for Zane Gonzalez as teams start to get desperate to try to leapfrog each other, cut each other in line to get a kicker, well, then it will be a sixth-round pick that the 49ers essentially made out of thin air. It will be very good business. So the 49ers love the fact they've got two capable kickers on the roster right now. And what they love even more is that Jake Moody has just been drilling these 60-plus yard field goals. Mitch Wishnowsky is the punter. Remember, he had a tweaked back at the start of camp, began on PUP, but it only took him a couple days to get back after that weightlifting incident. I guess the NFI, not PUP, because the injury happened away from the facility. Same rules apply to both lists, but PUP is for injuries that happen at the team facility. NFI is for injuries that happen away. It's called non-football injury. But Wishnowsky healthy now. Tabor Pepper re-signed this offseason. The long snapper is in place. All right, that's the special teams unit, or at least the specialists in the special teams unit. Let's move on to the 49ers secondary. Now, when I open the roster here, I think that if you remember how we were talking about the secondary 2 weeks ago when training camp started and right before everything kicked off, there was a lot less certainty about the depth of the 49ers cornerback position. I don't think there is pure certainty now, but there should probably be a lot more optimism about the depth behind Charvarius Ward, Deommodore Lenoir, and company. And I present to you the 49ers 53-man projection for the secondary. I'm highlighting it right now only at the cornerback position because this is the one that we were really wondering about entering camp. We had learned about a week prior to report day that Darrell Luter Jr. was going to be starting things on PUP. We knew that Charvarius Ward was legit. We had a feeling that Deommodore Lenoir would be legit, but he still has more to prove. So the jury's still out there, but I think that it's trending in the right direction. And we knew that the 49ers really liked Isaiah Oliver as a veteran pickup at nickelback. So in general, the top three here, the two starting corners and the nickel, were players of the 49ers, I think, rightfully had confidence in. But we also knew from the example of 2021, when the 49ers saw major injuries at the cornerback position, that you need to be deeper than just your starters. And there were big-time questions about the depth. Ambry Thomas, right, didn't do anything in 2022. Would he be strong enough to actually win at the point of attack here in 2023, his third season? Samuel Womack, good year as a rookie last year, but would he be able to take the next step? Deshaun Jameson wasn't even on the inside of my projection at the time. Deshaun Jameson was an undrafted rookie out of Texas, had made it a few nice plays in OTAs, but I wasn't ready to coronate him yet. I wasn't ready to give him that 53-man spot. This was just 2 weeks ago. Then you had the depth names like Trey Swilling, A.J. Parker. I put Darrell Luter Jr. in a red shade for PUP. And then Anthony Averett, Alabama corner, 4.3 speed. He's been in the league for a little while now. 49ers signed him after camp started after they saw Terrence Mitchell go down with injury. Mitchell, somebody they signed at the very start of camp. So Mitchell's on season-ending IR for the 49ers. Averett is now with the team, but obviously not projected to make the roster. Anyway, between Ambry Thomas, Samuel Womack, and Deshaun Jameson, I think the 49ers have seen a lot of good things, especially from Deshaun Jameson. Deshaun Jameson, I mean, this is probably the nugget of training camp for me. Charvarius Ward, who's the 49ers' big money corner, $13.5 million per year, making about as much as Richard Sherman did back when he was with the Niners. And I think everybody is starting to say, hey, Charvarius Ward's at least a top 15 corner, probably a top 10 corner. I mean, he's good. He's good. He makes a lot of money. He's the anchor of the 49ers cornerback room. Well, Charvarius Ward said the other day that Deshaun Jameson is actually teaching him some tips from his back pedal. The undrafted rookie is teaching the $13.5 million veteran. How's that for making a first impression from Deshaun Jameson? He's ferocious. He's 5'9", not overly fast, doesn't run a 4.3, but he's got really good short area quickness. And that makes him an obvious candidate at 5'9" with the short area quickness to be a slot cornerback. But the 49ers think that Deshaun could play on the outside as well. And that's what they really need, right? They need depth on the outside. That's what Deshaun Jameson so far is proving that he can give them. I'll tell you what, from every single practice this camp, whether he gets beaten or whether he makes a pass breakup, Samuel Womack is an energizer bunny that seems to be all over the formation. And that's what you want to see out of a second-year corner. So the 49ers got good special teams play, some depth from Samuel Womack last year, but in general, he was still a player you didn't want to see targeted on the field. I do think he's wearing the number 0 now, so maybe it looks like he's moving a little bit faster because of that. But I do think that Samuel Womack has made big strides. And again, this is a player that the 49ers really like as far as physical skill set goes. He's got long arms, but the opposite really speed profile of somebody like Deshaun Jameson. They're both 5'9". They're both not tall cornerbacks, but Samuel Womack runs a 4.4 low. He might even on a good day run a 4.3 high. So he's faster than Deshaun Jameson. So for sure, they think he's got the burner speed to be on the outside. But you're not looking at as much short area quickness, I think, with Samuel Womack. I think, you look at him and you say, oh, he's 5'9". This is great. He's got a decent 3-cone time, but the 40 pops off the screen more. So, everybody saw the height for Samuel Womack when the 49ers drafted him in the 5th round out of Toledo last season. Then they immediately penciled him into slot cornerback, but he's actually proven to be outside corner depth for the 49ers. And with the really long arms, that big wingspan, he's able to take away a lot of throwing lanes and a lot of throwing windows that your typical 5'9" cornerback is unable to take away. Finally, probably the most intriguing out of the 49ers' depth at the cornerback position is Ambry Thomas. And I won't lie, I thought that he was getting picked on over the first several days of this training camp. And he was getting picked on in the same way that he'd always gotten picked on, and that was due to a lack of strength. I mean, Ambry Thomas has always had good footwork. He usually is in good position. He's not slow. He's got good quickness. I mean, this is a guy that the 49ers picked in the 3rd round. But the problem is that at the point of attack, he's gotten out-muscled consistently at the NFL level. Now, I thought it got a little bit better toward the very end of 2021. But obviously, there were still struggles in the NFC Championship game of that season. Early in this training camp, Brandon Ayuk was out-muscling Ambry Thomas. Whoever you put out in front of him was out-muscling him. The coverage, at least as far as distance from receiver, was good. But the battle, the mano-a-mano battle at the point of attack in a physical football league wasn't. About 5 days ago, I saw Ambry Thomas start to win a couple of his reps at the point of attack. He out-muscled George Kittle for a pass breakup, which is a big deal because Ambry weighs 190, George Kittle weighs 250. If Ambry can, puff his chest out and work with some success against targets that are 60 pounds heavier than him, that's a step in the right direction. So I think at this point, Ambry Thomas, who's been working with the first team whenever Diamondor Lenoir has been out with that groin issue, which has been minor, but he's been out, so it's forced Ambry Thomas in the first team work. I think at this point, you can confidently project that Ambry Thomas is going to be on the 49ers 53-man roster, unless there's another team that wants to give the 49ers some good capital in exchange for him in a trade. But I think for the purposes of simplicity, we have Thomas on the outside looking in. At the safety position, Hufanga, Gibson, as good as advertised. Gibson still looks in great shape at age 32. Jair Brown started to talk a little bit of shit yesterday. Jair Brown and Ty Davis-Price had a nice collision in the sideline, followed by some words. I'm really, really pumped up to see Jair Brown on Sunday in a game where he could tackle live to the ground. Because Charvarius Ward said that that's when Jair Brown's going to start smacking people around. That's when we're going to see, oh, this is why the 49ers wanted this guy as their number 3 safety. Then obviously you've got George Odom. Out of the players that don't make it, well, the 49ers with Darrell Luter Jr., to me, it looks like he's bouncing around. He's dancing out on the field, but he's still on the PUP list. And it probably makes sense for the 49ers to keep Darrell Luter Jr. on the PUP all the way through the start of the regular season, because he could be on the PUP and be activated after 4 games if this happens. If the 49ers take Luter off of PUP, which means physically unable to perform right now, he can return to practice. But then if they want to carry him on the 53-man roster, he's going to take a spot. You can't throw him on IR because then he'd be ineligible to return this season. The only way that you can be on injured reserve and be able to return this year is if you are on the week 1 roster. So he would have to make the first 53-man roster, and then they would be able to put him on IR. Then he'd be able to return after a few games. I think at this point, it's easier for the 49ers if Darrell Luter Jr. goes on the PUP list to begin the regular season. And the only players eligible for that are the players who have been on the PUP list throughout all of training camp and the preseason. So Luter is eligible for PUP. He's the only 49ers player who's eligible for the regular season PUP. And I think that this gives them a tremendous amount of roster flexibility because Luter would not count against the 53-man roster, yet they could still carry him. He's a rookie. He's a 5th-round pick. They really like him. But if there's a crowd in this DB room, well, the best way to carry Darrell Luter Jr., maintain his eligibility to play this year, would be to keep him on PUP for the rest of this preseason and then bring him along on PUP in the regular season. Maybe you see him contribute later. Now, injuries over the next couple of weeks to any of these guys up here would change that thinking, or could really give a chance to change that thinking, so the 49ers can maintain their option power. And for now, I think it's best served by having Darrell Luter Jr. stay on PUP. More depth, Trey Swilling, A.J. Parker, who's actually made a couple plays. Swilling made a play yesterday too. And then obviously I mentioned Anthony Averett. All right, we're going to move on to the linebackers. Fun stuff. Hope everybody's doing well this afternoon. Once again, those of you just joining, lunch for Lombardi today was Saucy Asian at 17th and Sanchez here in San Francisco. That's the Saucy Asian Poke Bowl. This place, it's a California Asian fusion. So you're going to get your, obviously your poke is great there, but you're going to get it in like burrito form too if you want. You could get it in bowl form. This is just a standard poke bowl that they have here. It was really, 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 really good. I'm going to be bringing you more and more food as this season goes along, because I think football and food work very well together. All right, back to the 53-man roster projection. We move to linebackers now. Now, linebackers, I mean, you talk about a surplus of talent. This is where the 49ers might have the most significant surplus of talent. I've highlighted the room here. Maybe we'll make a couple of changes live while you all are watching this. And I'll zoom in too. So this is taking up a little bit more of the screen. You guys can always feel free to complain. I might not read it because I'm here talking, but Mike will let me know if there's some complaints. That's their linebacker room. Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw. It's the best linebacker tandem in the game. We know this, though. Thank you, Captain Obvious. Then what do the 49ers do at number 3? That's where the competition is. Supposedly, Tennessee is over the moon with Azeez Al-Shaair. And somebody posted, I think, on Reddit. It was making the viral rounds on the internet. How did the 49ers let Azeez Al-Shaair go? I can't believe it. He's the best linebacker we've had in 10 years. Well, they let him go because they have this. They have Warner. They have Greenlaw. And that third linebacker only plays on about 30% of snaps because your nickel packages more often than not in the modern NFL. So my question is, with Oren Burks, he gives the 49ers a nice high floor for that third linebacker spot. but you have a lot of other guys pushing for it. You have Marcelino McCrary-Ball clearly pushing for it, second-year man out of Indiana. D. Winters, he's got a pick already in training camp. He's got great instincts, too. Almost had another interception when he cut in front of a Sam Darnold pass to the flat. You've got Jalen Graham, who went in the 7th round, a round after D. Winters in the draft out of Purdue. Jalen Graham, they're trying to make him into a Fred Warner clone. He's 6'3", so tall linebacker, unusually tall for the position. I mean, all these guys have their hats in the ring for that third linebacker spot. Maybe not in week one. Marcelino, because he's already been in the system for a year, he might be a stronger week one candidate than D. Winters and Jalen Graham. But I think the 49ers would like to keep all these players in the building. And then you've got Demetrius Flanagan-Foles, who's a veteran, special teams ace. Oren Burks, same description there. So there is a glut of talent here. I haven't even talked about Curtis Robinson and Kiava Tizino, who the 49ers picked up out of the USFL, played for the Pittsburgh Maulers in the USFL. Reuben Foster was Kiava Tizino's teammate last year. Anyway, when you have a surplus of talent, that's when you can start wheeling and dealing. The 49ers had a surplus of linebacker talent a couple years ago in 2021. They had Jonas Griffith. He was making plays all over the field in training camp. At the end of camp, they traded Griffith to the Broncos. They got a 7th-round pick in return. I think something similar might happen this season. Oren Burks might be a player that the 49ers trade, or any one of these linebackers who they get a good offer for, whom they deem to be replaceable because there's a surplus of talent at the position, the 49ers can trade. I think if there is a likely trade away, linebacker is going to be, at the near at the top of the list of likelihood for the 49ers. One thing about Oren Burks is that if they do trade him, the 49ers save $2.5 million. And they've got a crowded salary cap situation. $2.5 million would certainly go a long way toward, making the Nick Bosa extension more cap palatable for the 49ers, giving them more in-season maneuverability this year. So I think that this joint session with the Raiders is a significant one because we're going to see these linebackers work against another team. We're going to finally be able to see some separation in what to me has been a crowded battle. And the 49ers coaches are going to be able to look at film after this is all said and done. And they're going to be able to say, hey, we like this guy a little bit more than that guy. We want him for depth. We're going to want him for the practice squad. This guy probably won't be able to clear waivers, so we can't risk exposing him to the practice squad. It's going to be a complicated game of Tetris. But ultimately, it looks like the surplus of value in the linebacker room will be able to net the 49ers some serious value in return. And I consider any draft pick that you can get for a fringe player on the roster to be a serious return. Because when Brock Purdy's a 7th-round pick, 262, the very last one. When Jawan Jennings is a 7th-round pick. When D. Winters is a 7th-round pick. I mean, 7th-round picks mean something. 6th-round picks mean something. Zane Gonzalez might be able to fetch the 49ers a 6 or a 7. The linebacker and the kicker positions, and in a bit I'm going to talk about quarterback, the QB positions, all have that in common. There are potential surpluses in talent that can give the 49ers some ammunition at the cut-down day on the trade front, and we should keep our eyes open for that. All right, why don't we move on to the defensive line? How's everybody doing on this afternoon, by the way? What is it, 2:10? I got an hour and a half. 2 hours and a half before I fly. Those of you just joining, very briefly, this is just a quick little hiatus that we're taking as I drink some water. This right here, this is up on Athletic. We're at $2 a month right now. What to watch from the 49ers practices versus Jimmy Garoppolo and the Raiders. If you like how in-depth I am about the 49ers in this video, you're going to like how in-depth my writing is. So link is in the description. Go ahead and check it out as we go through this 53-man roster projection. Natural daylight today. Nice. Not used to this. Do most of the shows at night, but today we're not out at training camp. Okay, back to the roster. D-line. This is going to be fun. D-line's a little banged up now, but, I mean, it's not a concern at this point of the season. It's allowing the 49ers to give more guys appropriate looks. But you got your starters. Bosa obviously shaded in green because he's a holdout right now, but 49ers not worried about that. I wouldn't be worried about it either. I think it's business, and I think that it's likely to, last through, at this point, most of August, but they'll get Bosa back. He'll be in good shape. Nothing to create drama about. Eric Armstead, Javon Hargrave, Drake Jackson, who missed practice yesterday after some fans reported online. I didn't see this part of practice, but it looked like he pulled up lame at practice with a little bit of a limp. So Drake Jackson obviously was unavailable yesterday. We'll see if he ends up being available against the Raiders this weekend, or if the 49ers decide to sit him. He could use as many snaps as possible, though, because they're counting on Drake to be that bookend on the opposite side of Nick Bosa. Still, no question that Drake is going to make this football team. Clelin Ferrell is going to be a reunion with the Raiders, played for them for 4 years. He's been stepping up here. The last couple practices with the 49ers a little thin at that DN spot with both Bosa and Jackson out of action. Ferrell and Austin Bryant, the two Clemson guys, teammates for the Tigers a few years ago, won a national championship. They've both been delivering good stuff at 49ers practice off the edge. Looks like they would have had several sacks if they could actually corral the quarterback. So that's good for the 49ers. So is the fact that Taco Charlton is playing really well. He's been with the team for just over a week, and he's already getting some first-team reps. So in this 53-man projection, I have 9 defensive linemen. I think it's likely, though, that the 49ers are going to carry 10. At the linebacker spot, I know that Winters and Graham I have on the outside looking in. Like I said, though, this is nothing final. And I think the 49ers probably, in all likelihood, are going to be taking one of these rookies, giving him a 53-man spot, and have another one, or at least trying to get the other one onto the practice squad. I wonder what they're going to do along the defensive line, because as you can see, there are limited numbers on this roster. They're already filled to the brim at 53, and I'm only carrying 8 offensive linemen. I am carrying 4 tight ends because Shanahan's always done that. I am carrying 6 wide receivers, so maybe they buy a number on the roster by carrying only 5 there. It's a situation filled with a lot of tough decisions. Now, the 49ers, to be able to ease this off, that they can do what we call a backroom deal. We see this every year with at least 1 or 2 players. They can tell a veteran who, if they cut him, he's not going to be exposed to waivers. They can tell a veteran, hey, don't sign with anyone else. We're just doing this so that somebody can make the roster that we need on the roster. We're going to put them on injured reserve right away so they'll stop counting against the 53-man roster. And then we'll sign you back a day after the cut down. The 49ers can do that. I think that they did it with, Curtis Robinson made the first roster last year. They did it with Jordan Willis, I believe, last year, who's now with the Raiders. They're going to have a reunion with him. Every year, it seems to happen at least once or twice. So the 49ers don't necessarily have to pare this down to 53. They can make backroom deals with a couple of veterans. So it could be 55 or 56 players that they technically are able to fit. But again, somebody would also have to get hurt before then. And there probably are a couple candidates who are already dealing with injuries right now. But I mean, you still have limited room to work with. That's the main point. So the 49ers are probably going to have to exercise some of that creativity so they can figure out this logjam along the defensive line. Right now, Kalia Davis is not in practice. He's been hurt. Robert Beal Jr., their 5th-round pick, not in practice. He's been hurt. So you've seen Taco Charlton get a hell of a lot of time. You've seen Alex Barrett productive in practice. He's been with the 49ers practice squad here for several seasons. Dalen Hayes, they just signed him last week. He was in on the pressure on Sam Darnold's interception yesterday. So, I mean, these are Chris Kasarik always seems to squeeze production out of the players that you might not have ever heard of. In the case of Taco Charlton, I'm sure you've heard of him, but he hasn't done much. This is his 8th NFL team. Well, all of these defensive ends are having a chance to contribute right now because there is a lot of red, a lot of pink shade here, and the green shade for Nick Bosa's holdout in the D end room. It will be fascinating to see how this unfolds against the Raiders. They've got Colton Miller, the first-round offensive lineman, blocking up front at left tackle. We'll see if Taco Charlton is going to get some quality work against him. We'll see how Ferrell, who obviously has practice experience against Colton Miller, will do. We'll see how Austin Bryant does for the 49ers. And then guys like Dalen Hayes and Alex Barrett are going to have big-time opportunities during these joint practices and in the preseason game. As far as the interior, well, Armstead, Javon Hargrave, great. Javon Kinlaw looks like he's in the best shape of his NFL career. He's playing really well. Kevin Givens, quick as always. Now, I have Kerry Hyder Jr. listed as defensive tackle here, but I'm going to go ahead and move Kerry Hyder Jr. to defensive end because Kerry has, we know he's versatile and we know he played mainly tackle last year, but when he was in the Niners in 2020, he played almost exclusively on the edge, and he's been lining up on the edge during this camp. So the 49ers feel that they have a lot of talent already at defensive tackle, that they've needed Kerry Hyder more at the edge. Does this mean that somebody like Spencer Waege makes the 53-man roster? Wage's bulked up to 290, played end in college at North Dakota State with Trey Lance. I think he does. I think I'm going to make that move right now. Now, I know I'm going to have to cut somebody elsewhere because this is going to increase our count to 54. But it's worth making the change right now. Waege at 290 has done good stuff for the 49ers. Let's paste this sucker. Boom. T.Y. McGill is moved up a spot too. But Spencer Waege, rookie, was about 270 to 275 in college. Decided that defensive tackle was going to be his best chance to make hay at the NFL level. Put on that weight. He's been pressuring people. So 49ers D-line room, it's a complicated situation. When Bosa comes back, by the way, that's going to take up another roster spot. Right now, he's not taking up a roster spot. So, I mean, I have it predicted right now. He's included in the 54 or the 53-man count, but he's not included in the 90-man count. So we're going to have to find a way to open up a little bit more room as we go through the rest of this roster. Going to move to the offense. Time check, 2:18. Think I'm making great time. Still have to pack my bag, though. Flight's in 2 hours, 20 minutes. Still got a little time. I cut it close. I knock on wood. I have never missed a flight in my life, and I fly a lot. Of course, I missed like a connection when the airline screws it up because airlines aren't the best, especially in the U.S. But I've never, missed a flight on my own volition. Batting 1,000. That's the wood that I'm knocking on right now. All right, time to go to the offense. Offensive line. I have the 49ers carrying 8. The starters are clear. Trent Williams, Aaron Banks, Jake Brendel, Spencer Burford, Colton McKivitz from left to right. Now, I mean, the big question is, what's the depth going to be? Jalen Moore seemed to have gotten first look at swing tackle. John Feliciano is the interior depth for sure. He's a veteran who started at center for the Giants last year, but is the first guy off the bench if the 49ers need a backup guard. Nick Zakel's made a lot of progress. He is the second man off the bench if the 49ers need a backup guard. Jason Poe, he's also been mixing in there. When both Feliciano and Banks were out the other day, it was a rotation between Zakel and Poe for backup left guard, and they moved into that first team role just for the day. Moore suffered the bone bruise in his knee. He's been out, but he's back in pads now. And I would think that they're going to try to get him back in there against the Raiders to test him, because one thing that the 49ers aren't sure of right now is the swing tackle on the roster right now? Because that's a battle between Moore, Matt Pryor over here, and Leroy Watson, who's the tight end he converted for the first time last year. He was a tight end 2 seasons ago, teammates with Spencer Burford at UTSA. Leroy's made a ton of progress, but is he ready to be an NFL swing tackle on Sundays? Do the 49ers trust his floor? Is the floor high enough? Do the 49ers trust Jalen Moore's floor? They essentially benched him last year, and Colton McKivitz superseded him on the depth chart. Do they trust? And that really happened in 2021 with Jalen Moore. So, I mean, he can leapfrog people back on the roster. Maybe not McKivitz anymore, who's entrenched as that starter at right tackle, but Moore is going to have to show some upward mobility to grab the 49ers swing tackle role. And then, of course, there's Matt Pryor, who started 28 career games, but has only worked on the right side so far. And this weekend's going to mark an inflection point because 49ers O-line coach Chris Foerster has said that after this weekend, all these swing tackle candidates are going to have to start playing on both sides to show that they're worth that roster spot. As you can tell, those are in short supply. Long story short, there's a whole lot of proving to do for the 49ers along this offensive line. This is going to be such an important position group if this team is going to go the distance this year. At times, this training camp, they have been beaten and even overwhelmed by the 49ers D-line, which doesn't even have Nick Bosa. It's really hard to tell just how good this O-line is going to be in pass protection based on training camp, which is why we shouldn't be freaking out. Defense usually is ahead of the offense in the blocking at this time of the year, early August. But that being said, we know that the 49ers have had pass protection issues in Shanahan's tenure. The pass protection has gotten a lot better over the course of the past 2 seasons, and they do expect to take strides in the middle with second years for Banks, Brendel, and Burford, all of whom were first-year starters last year. But there are questions, and that swing tackle spot is all the more important this year because Trent Williams isn't getting any younger, 35 years old, and Colton McKivitz is a first-year starter. McKivitz and Max Crosby are going to work against each other in training, in these training camp joint practices when the 49ers take on the Raiders. And, this is one thing that I really, really focused on in my article, which you should check out. This is the preview for the joint practices against the Raiders. I think, a lot of people ask me, what's the downside of Nick Bosa not being at camp? I think the biggest downside is that Colton McKivitz, first-time starter at right tackle, does not have the opportunity to work against an all-pro in Nick Bosa. Well, he does have that opportunity here. He will over the next 2 days against Max Crosby. All pro, not as good as Bosa, but it's a big deal for Colton McKivitz to be able to sharpen his skills against Crosby. So again, check this out. I'm going to copy and paste the link, put it in the chat section. This is the preview for today. All right. For tomorrow and Friday, not for today. The preview today is this 53-man roster breakdown. Rounding out the O-line, so Pryor has a chance at swing tackle, but again, the 49ers, when they go trading, they don't have to only trade for draft picks. They may be able to recoup a swing tackle that kicks more Pryor and Leroy Watson out of 53-man roster contention. It depends on the 49ers' comfort level with the swing tackles, and they're going to get a much better gauge on that during these practices and the preseason games. As far as somebody like Jason Poe, well, maybe he could beat out Nick Zakelj. We'll see how he plays in the games. Or maybe he'll have to be on the practice squad for another year. You have center depth in Ishmael and Corey Luciano. Joey Fisher and Ilm Manning, they're both guards. Manning has played third-team tackle for the 49ers. I don't think he's tall enough to be an effective NFL tackle, though. I would look at him more as a guard. I don't see either of these two guys making the initial 53 based on where they've been in the rotation. Ilm Manning, he's just a little short for the NFL level. Of course, you have Alfredo Gutierrez. He'll be around as the international exception. And then Leroy Watson is in that swing tackle battle. So to me, these are the likeliest 8 linemen, but there's a good chance that the swing tackle for the 49ers isn't yet on the roster, because that's a position the 49ers have to get right. You have to have more than 5 quality bodies to withstand the marathon of the NFL schedule. Will they carry 4 tight ends again? That seems to be an annual occurrence for Kyle Shanahan. I know that Cam Latu has had a lot of drops so far. 2 more yesterday. Braden Willis looks further along, even though Braden Willis went in the 7th round and Latu went in the 3rd. Does Latu make the team, even though he's swimming in that playbook right now? He even admitted that he's a little bit lost right now. He's dropping those passes. Does he make the team just because of his draft status as a 3rd-round pick? I don't know. 49ers, they don't have a lot of room to be messing around. Probably does, but I'm not sure. I think Willis is on track to make the football team. 49ers really happy with him. George Kittle. Oh, yeah, he's on track to make the football team. What about Charlie Werner? That's an interesting question, because if this turns into a numbers game for the 49ers and they want to take both rookies and, you got to free something else up, do you only take 3 tight ends this year? I find that unlikely. I think that because these 2 guys here are rookies, you do have to carry a veteran. I think Werner would get the nod over Ross Dwelly. He was higher on the depth chart last year. That gives you a nice floor, and it gives you more developmental runway for Willis and Cameron Latu. Got a couple more position groups. We finish with quarterbacks. What are we at? 40 minutes? Oh, perfect timing. All right, let's go to receivers. You know, Shanahan has liked to take 6. He's even taken 7 in 1 year to give Jalen Hurd one more chance. Jalen Hurd is now retired. On a good note, he caught a nice touchdown for the Patriots in his final practice. But anyway, this year might be the year the 49ers take only 5. Ayuk is a lock. Samuel's a lock. Jennings is a lock. I think Danny Gray has played himself into being essentially a lock. Ray McLeod, a lock. Ronnie Bell, I had on here earlier after OTAs. I think I'm going to move Ronnie Bell off for right now because I need to cut this down to 53 because I'm at 54 right now. And Ronnie Bell, he had a drop the other day. He hasn't shown up in as big of a way as he did during OTAs when things have become a little bit more physical. I think Tay Martin has been outplaying Ronnie Bell for now. I mean, Willie Snead definitely has. So let's move Ronnie Bell over here. Let's reset this. Erase Ronnie Bell. Boom. Highlight him to be a rookie. We're back to 53. And I don't think it's preposterous to think that the 49ers carry only 5 wideouts on the 53-man roster to fit under the limit while carrying guys like Tay Martin, reminds them of Kendrick Bourne, Chris Conley, who's had a good camp, Willie Snead has had a great camp, Isaiah Winstead, Daz Newsome, Ronnie Bell. All these guys have done good stuff, but I don't think that it's preposterous to think that we'll just have to pick out of this group of 6, maybe pick 2 guys to be on the practice squad. Keep them in the building, but who can you fit on the 53? Well, maybe injuries will dictate something different, but for now, I'm going to keep 5 receivers on the 49ers 53. Running back room, I think, is straightforward unless Elijah Mitchell's injury persists. McCaffrey, Price, Jordan Mason. I mean, Ty Davis Price has been awesome. I've talked a lot about that. So has McCaffrey, but that's obvious. Elijah Mitchell's got the adductor injury. Elijah might be somebody that you carry on that roster, but then place on IR the next day or right away. And if that happens, then you have room for another player that's on the bubble to make the 53. The 49ers just cut Ronald Watt, their undrafted free agent who was in there with Kalon LeBourne. They signed Jeremy McNichols. He'll be probably just a camp body, a preseason body, but he'll have a chance. Kalon LeBourne, I think he's on a good track to make the practice squad. And probably the most coveted practice squad position for running backs in the NFL is a practice squad spot with the San Francisco 49ers. Jeff Wilson made a lot of money that was starting that way, right? I mean, the 49ers, A, they use their running backs extensively. B, they use a lot of them. They use a rotation to keep everybody fresh. And C, they get hurt a lot because they're both physical and fast, and that leads to more injuries. So a practice squad running back is a play away from being on the active roster with the 49ers. Okay, time for the QBs. Let me get some water. We're going to surpass 500 viewers as we're talking about QBs. I don't want to count the chickens before they hatch, but we're at 490 right now. So that quarterback position, your starter is obviously Brock Purdy. Now, maybe I should put an or in here just to be funny. Because that's the way the 49ers are looking at it. Trey Lance or Sam Darnold. There we go. Yeah, you guys want me to put the or in between Jake Moody and Zane Gonzalez? I think I'll spare you. But Trey Lance or Sam Darnold, depth 1. Brandon Allen, I have not making the team. You know, you could see now because of all this really, really intense shuffling I'm having to do to keep this roster under 53 players, you can see how it would be really hard to carry 4 quarterbacks. Brandon Allen would put you right over the limit. Hasn't been done before? Yes. The Patriots in 2000 carried 4 quarterbacks on their roster. Guess who the Patriots' 4th quarterback in 2000 was? It was Tom Brady. Tom Brady's first career action in the preseason actually came against the 49ers in the Hall of Fame game in that year, 2000. Anyway, QBs are currency. And if you feel that you should carry your option power into the regular season, if there wasn't a trade offer that you really liked before the 53-man cut down, if you think that something will develop over the course of week 1, 2, or 3, yeah, sure, carry 4. It's probably not a long-term solution, but the 49ers don't think that that's likely. Let's just put that out there. I don't think it's impossible. They don't think it's likely. Right now, what they're doing is they're trying to develop all their quarterbacks so they have as much currency as possible when cut down day comes. The issue here is that Brandon Allen is a 2 in any other situation, but with the 49ers, he's a 4. 2s always make the 53-man roster, and they make at least $1 million a year. 4s, well, they make the practice squad, and they make only like $230,000 a year. So it's very unlikely, in my opinion, that Brandon Allen would re-sign to the 49ers practice squad unless they have some kind of big persuasion tactics for him if they do cut him, right? So that's why they might carry 4, because they would risk losing Brandon Allen. And we know that the depth of the 49ers quarterback position is so important to this football team. It's so important. And I mean, they saw their season end last year because they ran out of quarterbacks. So they're trying to keep this room as robust as they possibly can. And so far, I think they've been doing a good job building a robust room in training camp. I want to show you the stats from camp. I have a little screenshot here of the completions and attempts because I've never seen anything like this before while covering the 49ers under Kyle Shanahan. Take a look at this. We could zoom in for you. So Purdy, 71 out of 114, 62%. Lance, 64%. Darnold, 64%. Allen, 64%. The caveat is that Brock Purdy is working against the first-team defense. It's a bit tougher for him. But Lance and Darnold have also seen their share of snaps against the first team. They're splitting those reps and then reps with the 2s, the first-team reps when Purdy is out. And Brandon Allen has acquitted himself well. Cumulatively, this is the highest completion rate that we've seen from 49ers quarterbacks in a training camp under Kyle Shanahan. So the goal has been to build a robust quarterback room, and the 49ers have done just that. They're doing just that. This is going to be another big weekend that they have to use to progress toward that goal. And then what happens in these preseason games is they can showcase the guys that they might trade. Trey Lance, Sam Darnold, Brandon Allen. The rest of the league will get to see the 49ers quarterback currency. And if that quarterback currency performs well, the stock will continue to rise. The 49ers will have more value in the room. So it will be a fascinating couple weeks here. Just like the kicker position, the linebacker position, hell, maybe even the defensive line position, the 49ers will have more bodies of this quarterback room than they could fit on the 53-man roster. And if those bodies, if just one of those bodies is valuable enough to another team for a draft pick to come the 49ers way or a swing tackle to come the 49ers way, well, then the 49ers might act on it. So that's why this is a nice little game of chess that's going on right now. The 49ers are running a business, and they've stocked up on this roster so they have as much leverage as possible when the big negotiation inflection points come. And one of those is coming here at the end of August when they cut down to 53 players. All right. Good stuff, guys. We're at 512 people, almost 49 minutes in. So we're going to go to lunch with Lombardi to close this out since we got a high watermark on. This is where I ate today. Saucy Asian, 17th and Sanchez, San Francisco. That's the Poke Bowl. First of many lunch of Lombardis on the live, and we'll do lunch with Lombardis from location too. But right now, for me, it's off to Las Vegas. I got to hit the road. Maybe hit the rail on the way to the airport. We'll see. Everybody take care. This has been a 49-minute 49ers show. I do that on purpose. I'm really good at this timing thing. I talk about the entire roster. I break it down, and it takes me exactly 49 minutes. Make sure to check out The Athletic. The link to the Raiders preview is in the description. $2 a month right now. If you like this in-depth coverage on video, you'll like it even more on writing. Thank you. Everybody take care. We'll see you soon. See you in the desert. That's where we're coming from next.